So what is going on between Geralt, Yennefer and Triss? Because there is quite a complex history there. Let's take a look. Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to Deep Geek. Here we cover the world of The Witcher in full. Breakdowns, explanations and deep dives. That's as well as other great fantasy worlds like The Lord of the Rings and A Song of Ice and Fire. Welcome. In the Witcher 3 video game, there are two primary romance lines open to Geralt, Yennefer and Triss. Players new to the world may choose Yennefer, as the story there starts out with her as the clear love interest. Perhaps those who have played The Witcher 1 and 2 may prefer Triss, as she has a large role in both of those games, but ultimately it is for the player to decide. Book readers, however, come into this with a whole extra layer of understanding of the history between those three characters. So, what is going on? The starting point here is when Geralt met Yennefer in The Last Wish short story, early on in his Witcher career. The Last Wish is a layered story, but the headline, as far as we are concerned, is that in order to save the town and her from the wrath of a rampaging genie, Geralt uses his last wish that the djinn gave him to bind himself to her. We don't know the exact words of that wish, but the effect is clear. This is what Geralt thinks immediately afterwards. He felt her hair, smiling of lilac and gooseberries, brush his face, and he suddenly knew that he'd never forget that scent, that soft touch, knew that he'd never be able to compare it to any other scent or touch. Yennefer kissed him, and he understood that he'd never desire any lips other than hers, so soft and moist, sweet with lipstick. He knew that from that moment only she would exist, her neck, shoulders and breasts freed from her black dress, her delicate, cool skin, which couldn't be compared to any other he had ever touched. He gazed into her violet eyes, the most beautiful eyes in the world, eyes which he feared would become everything. He knew. "Your wish," she whispered, her lips very near to his ear. "I don't know whether such a wish can ever be fulfilled. I don't know whether there's such a force in nature that could fulfill such a wish. But if there is, then you've condemned yourself to me." So the two of them are bound together through strong magic, and consummate that new connection, so to speak, straight away. She is to him the only one from then on. He could care about other people, be intimate with other people and more, but that connection to her was, well, everything. As we'll see, Yen's connection to him also grows very strong, but because we don't know the exact wording of the wish, we don't know how much is from that. That happened when Geralt was in his late 30s and Yennefer much older, and they seem to have spent the next year or so together in Vengerberg as perhaps the closest thing they ever came to being a proper couple. But then Geralt left without a word to her. Why? Well, we have to read between the lines a lot on that one. He didn't enjoy city life and wanted to do the Witcher thing still, but these come across as excuses. At heart, he didn't seem to think that he was capable of unconditional love, and she didn't seem to think that she was capable of being loved unconditionally. Ironically, they were both wrong. Today we might say that neither were really ready for a relationship as intense as theirs. Still, Geralt leaving without a word was not good, and only compounded Yennefer's insecurities while not addressing his own. She was understandably rather bitter about it all. They next met several years later in the story The Bounds of Reason, when on a dragon hunt. They start off far apart, as you'd expect, but by the end they are back together, sort of, and the dragon Threejack informs them that "It is written all over your faces. I don't even have to try to read your thoughts. You are made for each other, you and the Witcher. But nothing will come of it. Nothing. I'm sorry." Which is both touching and tragic. And true to form, this coming together of Geralt and Yennefer didn't last long. They went to Aidginvale, another city where Geralt didn't really feel at home, and Yennefer admitted that she went there because Istredd, the sorcerer, was there. The two of them had been lovers for a while, it seems. It all came out into the open. Yes, she had slept with them both while there. Istredd asked Geralt to back off. Geralt agreed to a duel. She admitted to Geralt that she had feelings for Istredd too, and then left them both a message saying she was going because she didn't want to lose either of them. So that time it was Yennefer walking out on Geralt, but there are layers here as well. The conversation Geralt and Yennefer have there is heartbreaking. They tiptoe around the word love, neither thinking they are capable of it or receiving it, which incidentally, is the attraction of Istrith for Yennefer. She knows he loves her. They have shared interests. He is the safe option, really. So the two of them part again. And it is probably worth saying at this point that through this whole period they do sleep with other people and care about other people. There are flashes of jealousy when they meet up, but both understand, and they do meet up occasionally during their off periods, one time memorably at Beltane, so the bond is still there through their not-together times. And it's probably also worth pointing out that one of Yennefer's greatest desires is to have a child, but she is infertile because of the magic. Geralt is also infertile because of the mutagens, so a lot of what is driving her here is how to overcome that. The power of a genie's wish, a dragon, sorceress research, and so on. Having an infertile lover doesn't help. Let's next pick up on them in the main Witcher novel arc. Geralt wrote her a letter asking for her help in training Ciri, whose magical potential was proving beyond his, and Triss's, we'll come back to her in a moment, abilities. This was the famous Dear Friend letter. He received a suitably acid response to calling her his friend, after all they'd been through, but she did as he asked, and she developed an attachment to Ciri, a sort of mother-daughter relationship. Geralt slotted in easily as a father figure of sorts, and for a brief moment you get to hope that perhaps this found family might work. Sadly, we don't get a chance to find out. Yennefer and Geralt have a heart-to-heart and patch things up again. There's really is an on-off, on-again relationship for the ages, then head up to Thaneth just in time for the coup, where amid the chaos, they all get separated again. They meet up again towards the end of the story, and forgive me for not going through all of these details. The books really are worth reading, though obviously there are big spoilers here. And Geralt gets stabbed by the mob in Rivia. Yennefer expends all her magical energy trying to save him. Then Ciri saves them both in an ethereal, magical way, putting them on a boat to the Isle of Avalon, where they recover and live a blissful life together, losing track of time. The end. We'll come back to what happens after the end in the video games in a moment, because it's time to see how Triss fits into all of this. Triss and Yennefer had known each other for a long time before Geralt appeared on the scene, and were friends. Like most sorceresses, Triss found love hard work. She'd had a number of lovers over the years, but nothing had worked out. At which point, let's let Triss herself describe what happened in Blood of Elves. Then Geralt of Rivia appeared, a witcher leading a stormy life, and tied her good friend Yennefer in a strange, turbulent, and almost violent relationship. Triss had watched them both and was jealous, even though it seemed there was little to be jealous of. Their relationship quite obviously made them both unhappy, had led to destruction, pain, and yet, against all logic, it had lasted. Triss couldn't understand it, and it had fascinated her. It had fascinated her to such an extent that she had seduced the Witcher, with the help of a little magic. She had hit on a propitious moment, a moment when he and Yennefer had scratched at each other's eyes yet again and had abruptly parted. Geralt had needed warmth and had wanted to forget. No, Triss had not desired to take him away from Yennefer. As a matter of fact, her friend was more important to her than he was. But her brief relationship with the Witcher had not disappointed. She had found what she was looking for, emotions in the form of guilt, anxiety and pain. His pain. She had experienced his emotions. It had excited her, and when they parted, she had been unable to forget it. And she had only recently understood what pain is. The moment when she had overwhelmingly wanted to be with him again, for a short while, just for a moment to be with him. There is a lot there to unpack, but the headline is that during one of Geralt and Yennefer's many breaks, Triss and Geralt got together and had a short relationship. She seems to have fallen in love with him, but he broke it off because he felt guilty about Yennefer. There's a rather odd and perhaps even concerning detail that she seduced him with the help of a little magic. But we don't know what that was. Perhaps she just changed her appearance slightly or made the lighting in the room a bit more romantic, and there is no hint anywhere that Geralt was anything other than a completely willing and enthusiastic participant in their relationship. Also, Yennefer is far from exempt from the charge that she used magic to manipulate Geralt, so let's leave that to one side for a moment as an unexplained concerning detail. The long-term impact of their short-term relationship, though, is that Triss stayed in love with Geralt after they split up, whereas he very much saw her as a good friend. To add to Triss's misery, it seems that she had never had any intention of breaking Geralt and Yennefer apart, and despite what happens later in the video games, takes a step back when asked by either of them. Indeed, when, in the books, Geralt asked Triss for help with Ciri, she came, and after realising that nothing new will happen with Geralt, it is she who pushed him to set aside his pride and ask Yennefer for help. She repeatedly comes to aid Geralt whenever he asks. And when Yennefer sees Triss, she has words with her, leading to Triss withdrawing. We don't know exactly what is said, but this is what Yennefer tells Geralt. I've known Triss longer than I've known you. We like each other. We understand each other wonderfully, and will always do so, irrespective of various minor incidents. Just then, it seemed to me that she had some doubts, so I put her right, and that's it. Let's not discuss it any further. Which sounds nice, though one time when we do hear the two of them talking, Yennefer is not so nice, and Triss responds in kind. Enough talk, Yennefer snapped. More humility, you smug viper. He is my man, mine and only mine. Do you understand? You have to stop talking about him, to stop thinking about him. You have to stop admiring his noble character. As of right now. Oh, I want to grab you by your matted red hair. Try it, screamed Triss. Just try it, you vindictive bitch, and I'll scratch out your eyes. They both fell silent when they saw the cloud of dust as Ciri galloped back towards them. So, at this point, Yennefer is very much wanting Geralt to herself and wanting Triss to back even further away. They do make up a little bit, though, later. Before moving on to the games, it's probably just also worth noting what a sorry figure Triss cuts through this whole arc. Just take this sample of things she says. I'm not important. I let you down, Geralt. I let you down in everything. I was your mistake, nothing more. And, oh, Geralt, she sobbed, I so regret what was between us. And also, I knew, Triss grunted, that you would not forget, that you would take your revenge. I agreed to this, because I was actually at fault. It is possible, Triss swallowed. He may not forgive, especially if you, Yennefer, insist. Whatever you may think of her actions, and Triss is definitely not without blame in that regard, there's no denying that Triss beats herself up a lot over what happens. So, on to the games, which means this bit onwards is game canon and not particularly endorsed by Andrzej Sapkowski. The bit of backstory the games came up with was that the Wild Hunt, in trying to find Ciri, tracked Geralt and Yennefer down to their island getaway and captured Yennefer. Geralt obviously gave chase, and after quite a few adventures, Ciri rescued him and deposited him, without his memory, outside Kaer Morhen. Triss helped his recovery and was one of quite a large number of potential love interests in The Witcher 1. By the time of The Witcher 2, she was very much in a relationship with Geralt, but he also regained his memory in that game, including of Yennefer, so after Witcher 2, he and Triss went their separate ways. We're not told exactly how or why, but I think we can read between the lines. We'll get on to Witcher 3 in a moment, but what happened with Triss and Geralt in those first two games does lead to some obvious questions. Did she know that Yennefer was still alive? Well, it's complicated. What happened at the end of the books is deliberately open to interpretation, so Triss may have assumed that Yennefer had died. But Geralt was back. How, she didn't know, because he couldn't remember, so she must have realised that Yennefer could also be back. Why didn't she mention Yennefer? Well, she sort of obliquely hinted a couple of times and helped Geralt regain his memories, but only after they'd been together for a while. So although fans have a variety of views on this subject, I think the video games certainly got right that Triss would still be in love with Geralt, and she does have a track record of sneaking in there when Yennefer wasn't around, and also feeling guilty and backing away when Yennefer does turn up. By the time of The Witcher 3, Geralt has fully recovered his memories and is hunting for Yennefer, and Ciri, of course. Triss is one of the two main love options, but the setup at the start is clear. Geralt wants Yennefer. And for those who haven't played the game, it's a very open-ended game. The player decides whether to go with Triss or Yennefer, and they can also end up with neither. Geralt can never get both, though, be warned. The understanding between Triss and Yennefer hinted at in the books is definitely there. Probably most importantly for their relationship, there is a chance to break that last wish that bound Geralt and Yennefer together, a chance to see whether they work without that magical tie. It's an intriguing thought, because for all their clear attraction and care for each other, Triss is not wrong that Geralt and Yennefer's relationship did definitely lead to a lot of pain for them both, as well as the good times. It would have been fascinating to see what happened in the books if the option to take away the magical bond was there. Let me know what you think would have happened in the comments below. So, in the books, Geralt only loves Yennefer. That is at least partly, and initially entirely, because of that last wish. Yennefer also loves and wants Geralt, though theirs is a stormy relationship, more off than on until the end, and very much non-exclusive while they were apart. Triss is therefore the third party in this. She only ever really had a short relationship with Geralt, who sees her now as very much a friend, but she is clearly still very much in love with him. She cuts a sad figure. Neither Yennefer nor Triss want to share, and Yennefer very much asserts her claim to Geralt, so to speak. In the games, Triss and Geralt rekindle their short relationship while Yennefer isn't there, and Geralt doesn't even remember that she existed, but as soon as he does remember, he becomes very much focused on Yennefer again. Then we get the player's choices taking over. Will the player break the magical bond and see whether Geralt still loves Yennefer? Will they choose Triss? The ending is open. And I quite like that. Andrzej Sapkowski writes layered fiction, which constantly challenges the truth of the story that we have just heard, while holding high the value of the story itself. He has had his differences with the game's designers, but everyone having their own interpretation and ending to this complex tale of love actually feels in keeping somehow. If, after the long story, you feel Geralt ends up with Yennefer, or Triss, or neither, that is your choice in the game, and your fairy tale to believe in and be inspired by. If you'd like to see more Witcher videos like this, there's a link to my playlist on the left of your screen now. Or to support this channel, thank you. There's a link to my Patreon page on the right of your screen. Thanks for watching. That's all for this time. I'll see you again soon.